Someone at a wedding is crying right now, and they are, by every measure that matters, having the best day of their life. Someone else just watched their team win a championship after decades of losing, and tears are running down their face in a stadium full of screaming, joyful strangers. Somewhere, right now, a parent is crying while watching their child take their very first steps. None of these people are sad. All of them are crying anyway. Here's what should genuinely bother you about that. Crying is supposed to be the body's signal for distress. It shows up at funerals, breakups, physical pain, grief. That's the story you were taught, and it's not wrong, exactly. It's just badly incomplete, because it can't explain why the single most intense joy of someone's life routinely produces the exact same physical response as their worst days. So what is actually happening in your body when tears show up at the good moments, not just the bad ones? Let's start with something you might not know. Not all tears are the same tears, chemically speaking. Your eyes produce three functionally distinct kinds of fluid, and only one of them has anything to do with emotion at all. Basal tears are the constant low-level moisture that keeps your eyes lubricated every second of every day, whether you're crying or not. Reflex tears are the ones that flood out when something irritates your eye directly, cutting an onion, getting dust in your eye, that sort of thing. And then there are emotional tears, the ones tied specifically to psychological states rather than physical irritation. A biochemist named William Frey ran research in the 1980s comparing the actual chemical composition of these different tear types and found something that reframed how emotional tears are understood. Emotional tears contain measurably higher concentrations of certain stress-related hormones and proteins compared to reflex tears produced by something like onion fumes. Crying from genuine emotion isn't just a leaky eye side effect of feeling something. It's your body actively excreting stress-associated chemical compounds through your tear duct, a genuinely different physiological process from what happens when your eyes are simply irritated. That's a compelling piece of the puzzle, but it still leaves the core mystery untouched. Stress hormones showing up in tears makes intuitive sense for grief or physical pain. It's much harder to explain why watching your team finally win after years of losing would trigger the exact same stress hormone-laden crying response as watching that same team lose in devastating fashion. This is where a researcher named Vingerhoets, who has spent much of his career specifically studying the psychology of crying, offers something genuinely useful. Vingerhoets has argued across a substantial body of research that crying isn't fundamentally a response to sadness at all. It's a response to being overwhelmed, specifically by intensity of feeling that exceeds your ability to process it through ordinary means. Whatever the source of that intensity happens to be, grief can overwhelm you. So can joy, awe, relief, and pride if they hit hard enough and fast enough. Under this framework, crying isn't the emotion itself. It's an overflow valve, triggered anytime your emotional system gets flooded past a certain threshold, regardless of which specific emotion caused the flood in the first place. That reframes the wedding tears and the championship tears completely. They're not confused sadness leaking out at the wrong moment. They're the exact same overflow mechanism responding to an entirely different kind of flood. There's a piece of research that makes this overflow idea considerably more concrete, and it comes from a psychologist named Oriana Aragón, working with colleagues at Yale. Aragón studied something she and her team called dimorphous expressions, the well-documented but strange phenomenon where intense positive emotions frequently produce expressions typically associated with negative ones. People who see an extremely cute baby often report an urge to squeeze it, almost aggressively, despite feeling nothing but affection. People at the happiest moment of their lives cry, exactly as they might at the saddest. Aragón's research proposed that these seemingly contradictory expressions serve a specific regulatory function. When positive emotion becomes intense enough to threaten to overwhelm you, your body appears to instinctively generate a countervailing expression, one that looks negative on the surface, specifically to help bring your emotional and physiological state back toward a manageable equilibrium. In experimental settings, Aragón's team found that participants who were allowed to express this kind of dimorphous reaction, squeezing a stress ball while looking at extremely cute images, for instance, actually returned to emotional baseline faster than participants who weren't given that outlet. The seemingly mismatched expression wasn't a glitch getting in the way of pure joy. It was functioning as a release valve, helping the intensity of the feeling actually pass through the body rather than staying stuck at an unsustainable peak. Crying at overwhelming joy appears to work on exactly this same principle. It's not your brain confusing happiness for sadness. It's your nervous system recognizing that an emotional spike, regardless of its source, has crossed a threshold requiring active physiological regulation and reaching for the same release mechanism it always reaches for, because that mechanism was never actually built exclusively for sadness in the first place. It was built for overwhelm. Full stop. There's a social layer to this that adds one more piece, and it connects back to Vingerhoets' broader research on why humans evolved to cry visibly at all, rather than experiencing intense emotion silently and internally, the way many other animals appear to. Visible crying, with actual tears rather than just a change in vocalization or expression, appears to be largely unique to humans among all primates. And Vingerhoets has argued this likely evolved specifically as a social signal, an honest, hard-to-fake broadcast that something significant is happening inside you, powerful enough to recruit help, comfort, or shared celebration from the people around you. Under that framing, crying at a wedding or a championship win isn't separate from crying at a funeral. It's the same ancient signal doing the same ancient job, which was never really about announcing sadness specifically. It was about announcing magnitude. This moment is big. This feeling is more than I can hold quietly by myself. Come closer. Whether the people rushing toward that signal arrive to comfort you or to celebrate with you turns out to be almost beside the point. As far as the underlying mechanism is concerned, the tears aren't asking a specific question about your emotional state. They're just turning the volume up loud enough for everyone nearby to notice that something, one way or another, just happened. Put together, the picture that emerges is almost the opposite of how most people intuitively understand their own tears. Crying was never really the language of sadness specifically. It's the language of overflow, wired into a signaling system that evolved to make sure other humans could tell, at a glance, and without a single word being spoken, that whatever you were feeling had gotten too large to keep entirely to yourself. So the next time tears show up at a moment that has absolutely nothing to do with sadness, a wedding, a reunion, a song, the exact instant your team finally wins, know that your body isn't confused. It's doing exactly what it was built to do, recognizing that something in you just got too big to stay quiet and letting everyone close enough to know it. In the oldest, most honest signal your species ever developed, someone at a wedding is crying right now. They are having the best day of their life, and somewhere deep in their nervous system, something very old just did its job perfectly.